Welcome to the Terminal Exchange, the official podcast of Nussbaum Transportation, where we explore key issues and compelling stories in the trucking industry. I'm your host, Sage Anderson, and you're listening to episode 101, celebrating our 100th episode, a look back at season 1. Did you know that our first ever episode aired December 2018? Back then, maybe we didn't have video cameras and maybe we didn't know what we were doing, but our first 60-ish episodes didn't have camera. So this look back is going to be full of great audio with our original host, Phillip Adams. You'll hear stories about our CFO, as he's a trainee behind the wheel for a week, a colonel, a police officer, you name it. Check it out on this featured exchange.
Avis, thank you so much for sitting with me here, and
thank you.
Glad to have you guys here.
Yes.
Gary, I want to start by congratulating you on a milestone that you have recently achieved of 40 years here at Nussbaum. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And Avis, you as well have had 15 years.
That is correct.
As well, so it's a bit of time between the two of you here. Tell me a little bit, Gary, on that idea. 40 years with one company is kind of unheard of anymore, especially with younger generation people hopping from one job to the next, using each one as a stepping stone to the next thing. Tell me a little bit about that sort of commitment and endurance to stay with one company for 40 years.
Okay. Well, first of all, I shared with at a little party we had here Friday for my anniversary that of all the things that your parents are supposed to teach you when you're younger, I can only remember one, and that one was if you work hard for the people that you work for, you will always have a job. And so that's kind of stuck with me, and it was more of a generational thing from my parents and my grandparents' time. But the thing that is unique about being here at Nussbaum is that that's a two-way street. The employer has got to be faithful to the employee too, and that's something that Nussbaum has been very faithful to me. There's a lot of people that worked at Mitsubishi or Eureka Williams or other places in town that they were faithful to their company, but the company and the stockholders decided that they could make more money somewhere else. So I'm very, very fortunate in being able to work here at Nussbaum at a job that I always wanted to be a truck driver, so it made it easy to drive the truck, but you have to have somebody that's going to stick with you too.
Now, for those that aren't aware, Gary, you started out as a driver here.
Correct. I drove for about 23 years here, and then they came to me one day. Phil Breaker was the operating manager at the time and asked me if I wanted to come in the office. I didn't know if they wanted me in the office or wanted me off the road, but I took it that I got to be home every night with my wife, and that's something, to me, the hardest part of being on the road was not the traffic, was not the weather, was not the people that you drove around. It was always the being away from home. So it's been, well, however many, 23 and add up to 40.
Avis, is that the same for you? Was the hardest part Gary being away from home, or was it when he came home?
It was very difficult, his being away from home.
Oh, good. I thought she was going the other way with that.
I did miss him very much, but it was also difficult when he came home because I had my own routine. I was captain of the ship when Gary was away, so as far as drivers' wives are concerned, it's a unique opportunity for challenges. Mm-hmm. And we probably had all those challenges just as all the other wives do. But
I thought it went perfect, by the way. But
well, can you recall any instance where it was especially challenging with Gary being away? Did you ever have anything blow up on you while he's 100 miles away, whatever?
I can't remember the details. Something broke. Something would inevitably break while he was gone. And, of course, I would call him. And he would say, well, what do you want me to do about it? I'm miles and miles away, which had not occurred to me, but I needed to tell somebody.
Yeah.
You know, and he was my partner and still is. But in the interim, we did get a plan together where he worked it out with my brother. If something broke in the future, we had it worked out that I could call my brother, and Gary and my brother would talk, and my brother would help me out, get me all straightened out, whether it was getting the lights back on or water.
Yeah. Whenever she would call, of course, being a man, I took it that I was getting blamed for whatever was breaking. And in reality, women have this unique ability to need to share things. And all she was wanting to do was to share what was going on. I took it as I was being blamed for what was wrong. So it took a little bit of learning on my part to go, okay, she's just sharing. I don't need to fix this, you know, because I'm thinking I got to call home and find somebody to fix this thing. So yeah, that's part of being married that men seem to learn the hard way, or at least this one did.
You always have that fear of when that call comes in that, you know, I think you even said this, you know, what's wrong now?
Yeah.
You know, the idea of, you know, why is she calling? What's broke? What do I need to fix now?
Yeah. It wasn't, hi, honey, I miss you. It's the water heater is leaking all over the basement.
But it was different back in our day in that there were no cell phones. And so the only time that I got to speak with him is when he called me from either the motel phone or a payphone. So it was...
What's that?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, she couldn't contact me.
How long have you guys been together?
This morning, you mean, or?
How long have you guys been married?
Well, we're working on 48 years.
48. How did you guys actually meet?
You tell the story.
Oh, you tell it. You tell it.
They're going to fight over this now.
I'm gonna fight over it.
There's always two sides to this.
Avis and I probably lived 2 miles apart from each other most of our life. Didn't know that. We went to the same junior high and high school together. Didn't know each other at all. I graduated from high school in 1970. She was in between her junior and senior year that summer, and we had been out riding motorcycles. I ran around with a group of guys, probably 20 of us that had motorcycles, little dirt bikes and street bikes and just, you know, whatever you could get on two wheels. And one of the guys had thrown a chain on his motorcycle. So we all pulled over in front of the old Eureka plant here in Bloomington, and we're all sitting on the curb, and Avis and her girlfriend pulled up in a car. And I guess her girlfriend knew some of the people that were there. I don't know that you knew anybody, did you? That was there in that
I knew
group.
her friends.
No, okay. And
I
so
just didn't
anyway,
know you.
She had friends too.
Yeah, she had friends too. I had my cousin on the back of my bike, Dave, and so we're sitting there and waiting, and these girls come up and they're talking a little bit, and I'm checking these two girls out, you know. And believe it or not, I was really, really a shy guy. I didn't date at all at school. Didn't talk to any girls when I was in high school.
What changed?
She changed me, turned me into a monster. And so anyway, they're sitting there for a while, and they decide that they want to go riding on the motorcycles. And so I speak up and say, well, one of you can ride with me. Even though I already had a passenger, I turned and looked at Dave and told him he's going to have to find himself another ride. And so Avis went riding with me, and we rode for, I don't know, a couple hours that evening with the group like that. And then my motorcycle started acting up, and I said, well, I'm going to have to put this bike away. And she thought, okay, he's dumping me now. And in reality, we got in the car, and I took her home, and I guess they say the rest is history. She was the first girl I ever dated. She says she'll be the last girl I'll ever date, and she's kind of holding me to that so far. But
now, Avis, how soon did you know with Gary that this could actually be something?
When the car pulled up, when she pulled up and saw us there, I would think she knew right away.
How soon did I know? That is a very good question.
I mean, it wasn't on that ride, was it, with him?
No.
Oh, no,
But
I thought she loved me on that ride, though. I really did. I thought this girl is so into me because she squeezed me so hard with her arms around me on that motorcycle. I'd never been around another girl, and this girl loves me.
I had never ridden a motorcycle before.
And there's the truth.
That's what she says now,
But he was safe. And he was a really nice guy compared to the other young gentlemen that I had dated, and he was very nice. And so my mom really decided for me.
Yeah, her mom liked me before she liked me.
Interesting.
That's quite true.
What were you doing? Bringing cookies over to the house or what?
No, I was just there. She'd cook me steaks. It was just wonderful. I didn't realize I was being bought, but it was pretty nice.
But he's worth it.
Well, tell me a little bit about kind of keeping up the relationship, loving each other for 48 years as you have. What does it take to make that relationship endure?
Humor plays a big role. A lot of times we can look at each other, even in a very tense situation, and make a joke out of it.
Well, I tell people that when you talk, when did you know that he was the one, or when did you know that she was the one? I could probably honestly say that probably would have been 2 or 3 years into our marriage. Because I can honestly tell you that I did not love Avis when I married her. I was infatuated with Avis. She was the greatest thing since, buttered toast. This girl just was the world to me, but I had no idea what love was. It was just the fact that she was a girl, and that she wanted to be with me. And so it wasn't until a few years into our marriage that I realized, maybe I might have a hint of what love is here. I don't want to be without her. I want to be around her all the time. I want to protect her. I want to take care of her. We are friends, Now, saying that and throwing 48 years on top of that, we are not clones. I do things that she doesn't like. She does things that I don't like, but we still love each other and we make that work,
But I have to admit, he treats me like a princess, and I fit that role really well.
Bill, you just came in out of the truck, straight in, giving you very little downtime here to think about anything before I caught you here. So what are your first impressions of driving over the road?
Yeah, well, first, I have a ton of respect for those that do this every day, so kudos to all you drivers. Second is, probably what surprised me was just how misunderstood the truck driver is out there, just dealing with the public. And I want to get over, I'm signaling, and they think they're giving me enough room, and I don't think they are, and all those kind of things. So, yep, and just I'm big and slow, and yep. So I enjoyed it. I'm worn out, need a few weeks to adjust to their lifestyle and a whole different, so many different things that my brain need to think about that it's not used to thinking about, right?
Yeah.
So
now you were training with Mike Klein, and he's out parking the truck right now, and he's coming. He'll be in here in a minute joining us. But talk about being with Mike on the road. How was that? Having him as your trainer?
Yeah, Mike did great. Super patient, very knowledgeable. He really has picked up a lot from a lot of different people, and he quotes from many different ones who he learned from. So he's been it was amazing to me how he didn't just have one mentor; he has a ton of them. Yeah, super patient, but he was persistent. He wasn't going to let me get by with things that were unsafe or inappropriate out there.
Yeah.
So at times that would grate on me. I'm trying, but it's not happening. And so,
yeah. Tell me, so you started out Monday morning early, right? This week, and it is now Friday afternoon.
Yep.
About 3:30 in the afternoon, and you're back in here.
Yep.
A good full solid week there. Where'd you start out at?
Okay, so I think we met here at the yard at a little after 4:30 Monday morning, and then we went over to York, PA. From there, picked up in Collegeville, PA, and went up to Massachusetts with a broker load. After that, we did 3 stops out there in Massachusetts, New York, and Connecticut, heading back to Indy, and then from Indy went to Lebanon, and here we are.
So you got the easy stuff.
Yeah, that was actually fun. Actually, I am nowhere near a driver. I want to make sure that's clear, and I also want to thank Brent Nussbaum for allowing me and supporting me and doing this. But I think one thing that I didn't realize that was going to be so much for me to remember is just like at the shippers and the consignees, the drop and hook was, I'm not real smooth on that yet. Just the different steps, dropping the hook and sliding the tandem. Simple stuff for the experienced guys, but for me, with the week I had, I felt like the on the road stuff, I kind of am more comfortable with that than I am with dropping the hook. Backing, I can do it. I need to get out and look and to pull forward a lot more than anybody else that drives for us does. But anyways, that's where we're at.
Now, did you hit anything?
Not that I'm aware of.
Good enough. Good enough.
I'm kind of interested to see, to hear from him how his drive is home in his pickup.
Right.
Compared,
because now you got to go hop into your four wheel.
Most of us talk about, how we drive our personal vehicles like we drive our trucks. We take wide turns. We're looking at the weigh stations. Do we need to go in? That kind of thing. So that, he's probably going to avoid the weigh stations on the way home, I'm guessing. But
that's right. One more thing. I do need to have some words with Doug Bradle on Monday. On Sunday before I left, I seen Doug, and he joked with me that I thought he was joking that he was going to give me a broker load to Massachusetts. Well, then we wrapping up our load on Tuesday, and we get a call from dispatch, and they say you got a broker load to Massachusetts, routed across the George Washington Bridge. So we changed the routing, so that didn't happen. But
so you didn't get to go across the GW?
No, we missed that opportunity.
Man.
Well, I kind of said too. I said if we're going to do it, I'm going to drive it because I've never driven it yet.
I said
you haven't done it yet.
I'm not going to cross it yet.
We would have kind of had a tussle because I kind of wanted to drive. But I didn't know that I wanted to drive across that.
Well, I think I might have won because right at the very beginning, the first day, you said, Mike, you're the boss. I don't know if it would have held up. I don't know if it would have held up until that day, but
That's right.
I would have tried to play that card.
That's right. And one thing Mike has on his visor, he has a little thing that his girlfriend gave him about a sea turtle, and it says just to be kind and gentle. I had to think about that last night. That's just how, as a trucker, I think you have to be out there because you're so misunderstood. And it reminded me of the sea turtles. They're big and they don't move very fast, but they're very kind and gentle. And so that really struck me. If we can do that, and I think of our vision, we say that. We want everybody to be in a better place for having dealt with our company. And I think that even means interaction with our trucks on the road. So if we can show the other motorists the respect, even when they don't respect us. And I even thought in the morning when I'd get up for the day, obviously praying for safety, but praying for them and trying to think of that when someone does something that I'm thinking that didn't make any sense. And I think our drivers do a great job of that, but that kind and gentle kind of stuck with me. That's how we got to be, because if we don't, we're going to hurt somebody.
Yeah. Adrian, you are one of the most interesting, I think, drivers that we've got here, at least in my experience from just what I know your interests and everything to be. So I'm very excited to get into this and talk to you for the next few minutes and find out more about your story. So thanks so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me in here.
Let's go back. Obviously, we know you're driving a truck here at Nussbaum and everything now. So let's get some of the easy stuff out of the way here and talk about you just getting into driving professionally, how that kind of got started for you. Your first gig driving did not involve actually driving a truck. It was actually a bus, correct?
It was a bus. It was an old school bus painted blue with white mountains on the side. And it was at a ski resort in northern Vermont. I was just out of college, and my first job out of college was a corporate job, and I was there for a few months, and it just wasn't a good fit for me. So I was thinking, well, what else can I do? And I was a snowboarder. That's why I was up in Vermont in the first place. And I thought, well, it'd be cool if I could work at the ski resort and get a free season pass so I can, go snowboarding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I was looking at what jobs are available at the resort, and there was shuttle bus driver, Class B CDL required, but will train. And it was one of the better paying jobs at the resort because it required an actual skill.
Skilled, yeah. So how was that for you as far just the job part of it? Forget the snowboarding side of it, but the job of doing that driving, what'd you think of that?
It was a blast. I love that job. That's one of my favorite jobs I ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would drive up and down the mountain. The base lodge was at the lower part of the mountain, and then there were parking areas at the top and lifts. So I would drive up and down the mountain all day long and transport skiers and snowboarders, and got to chat with them about skiing, about what the terrain was like, about what the weather was like that day. And yeah.
Yeah. Now, being in that environment where you got some snow and everything, right? And did you ever have any situations at all?
Yeah. I got some good winter experience up there, that's for sure. Because, when you're driving a shuttle bus at the ski resort, when it starts snowing, you don't get to park and, call your dispatcher and say, it's not safe out here. That's when you get busy. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Anybody ever get a little scared on your bus?
Probably. They didn't let me know that until after the fact, but for the most part, it was more like a big sigh of relief and, oh wow, after the fact of what happened, and then they let me know how nervous they had been when they saw what was about to happen.
No doubt. I know I've been on some of those different buses, maybe not at a ski lift deal, but at the lodge. But when I've been on excursions, say in Jamaica or something, and had these really narrow roads and these drivers driving these buses, I've been impressed at the skill level of some of these drivers.
Oh yeah,
and how good they are and how close they can get in, and doing their thing. And yeah, anybody that's not real familiar be sitting there, I think, white knuckling their seat or whatever. But I've been impressed at the skill level of some of these drivers.
I think it's like us as truck drivers, backing into docks, and we do things over and over and over again, and somebody else would look at that and say, how do they do that? And it's the same thing with those guys driving around the little mountain cliff and, sheer drop on the other side.
So now, how much time did you actually get to play on the mountain there as well?
A fair amount. Yeah. I lived up there for years and through different jobs. And so, yeah, especially on the weekends, I could get out there.
I've never tried snowboarding or skiing yet. I actually think I'd rather do snowboarding than skiing personally.
Really?
A lot of people say that skiing is actually a little bit easier to get started with, but for me, I kind of feel like I'd do better with snowboarding. But
some people go straight into it. Yeah.
So now there's what would they call it? Goofy footed. And that's how's that work? That's if you lead with your non-dominant or with your dominant?
You lead with your, gosh, I don't know, because I'm goofy foot and I'm left-handed. So I write backwards and I ride backwards. But there's not always a direct correlation. There's often a correlation.
So you're left-handed. So which foot do you have in front?
I'm left-handed, and then my right foot is forward in my stance.
So I feel like I would feel better with my left foot forward.
Are you right or left-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Right-handed, left foot forward?
Left foot forward.
Then that would be regular foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like I would do better. I could be completely wrong about that, but that feels a little bit more natural to me.
Yeah.
Not a skateboarder or any of that. At this point, I'm getting to the point where if I try doing that, I'm probably coming home with broken limbs and stuff, and it's just not going to be good news. But someday maybe I'll still try it. But
I think you should. It's a blast.
But what's your favorite part about doing that sort of activity of not skateboarding, but of snowboarding? And I know you've got some other outdoor activities that you like as well.
I like being outdoors is the big thing. I've always been drawn to kind of high speed, little bit of risk, little bit of adventure activities. And
now you're in a 65 mile an hour truck going down the road.
Right. Yeah. It just kind of fit,
Where's the best place to go snowboarding?
Out east or kind of.
If you had your choice of where you're going to go set up and go, like if you could go live somewhere and just and get on the slopes anytime you wanted.
Absolutely best place is Jay Peak up in northern Vermont. It's the northernmost resort, and they get hands down the best snow every winter. There's just something about the way the wind and the clouds come through the mountains. They just get dumped on.
Nice.
And they're out of the way from the more touristy resorts, and the terrain is a blast. And be up there.
Cool.
Well, when they would say, wow, you've had a lot of jobs or something in effect like maybe you can't keep a job, my answer was, well, I need to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And I think I have. It's called retired.
When's the last time you had to tell somebody that you still were figuring out what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Oh, probably 6 months ago, maybe less.
And you're how old now?
I'm 67.
67. I'm figuring out what you want to be when you grow up.
Going to be the company's oldest truck driver soon, I'm sure.
And you mentioned working with John Kelly.
Yes.
And him having a good sense of humor and everything. I feel like you might be able to give us a story. Is there something that you're able to share?
Actually, there is. It's really neat. I equate truck driving in the military very much the same. You never know who you're going to meet in uniform, and you never know who you're going to meet driving a truck. Yeah. They're the most interesting people if you take the time to get to know them. In this case, I met a Navy commander by the name of Eric St. Peter, who was a Mustang like me. He came in as a E1 in the Navy, and they trained him as a cook. Now, I'm thinking he must be a pretty good cook because he told me he ended up, when he was an E4, cooking in the White House for George Bush Sr. and President Clinton's first term. Smart guy. He got his degree while he's doing that, and he becomes an officer. And he came down, and General Kelly picked him as his personal aide. And so he knew that I would bring these avocados in. He came to me one day and said, would you get me a really nice big one? I found out the general's wife loves avocados. And so I said, sure. So I found a really nice one. I had brought a bunch of them in, and I brought it into the command suite where General Kelly's office is and all his staff is. And I saw Eric, and I said, here, this one's for the general. He said, wait here. And he goes into the general's office, and I'm chit-chatting with an Army sergeant when he comes out. And he winks at me and goes and sit down. And General Kelly's a pretty big guy. And all of a sudden, it was like somebody blacked out the sun. He's standing in the doorway, and this big booming voice says, I want to know who brought this big avocado in here. Well, his staff doesn't know what's going on. They think somebody tried to play a practical joke, and they're all in trouble, and they're all standing stiff at attention. And I'm retired. I stand at attention out of respect for this rank, But I looked around. I'm kind of laughing because they're all rolling their eyes at each other like, who did that? We're in trouble. And finally I said, sir, that'd be me. And he was about 20 feet away, and in about 2 steps, he bounded over, grabbed my hand, and said, thank you very much, sir. I'll take all those you can get. The little woman just loves them. So about a week or so later, general officers don't go anywhere without a whole entourage of people with them, And so I'm walking up the hallway, and you might recall in the news some time back, I believe it was General Kelly was on his way to the Capitol and got snarled up in traffic. And he jumped out of the limo and just took off down the street. And the Secret Service are scurrying to catch up with him.
I bet.
He moves with a purpose. And he was coming down the hallway, and here's this all entourage behind him. And I saw a 2-star and a couple 1-stars and the command sergeant major, Well, I meet him in the hallway. He's way ahead of him. And he just kind of makes a little pistol with his finger and thumb and winks at me and says, avocado man. And so he walked on by. They're trying to catch up with him. And this 1-star general heard that. And he didn't understand what that was all about. He reached out and grabbed me by the coat and wheeled me around and said, I want to know what the general meant, avocado man. And I thought about it, and I said, boy, if this general knew that I was just a retired colonel, he'd have me up against the wall, probably having me doing push-ups or something. So I thought, I'm just going to play it smart. So I just looked him in the eye, real casual, and I said, well, John and I are friends. And I walked off, and he ran to catch up with the general.
Oh, nice. Now, speaking of amazing things, if you've traveled enough, there's some places where you're familiar with seeing some elephants. However, I understand you have an experience with an elephant that's not just a statue. And so this is a story that I think is worth sharing because How often does this happen?
Well, you're right, Phil. The typical North American elephant is a statue. But this goes back many, many years ago. I was a college student. I was in a Christian college in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And it's really how I started my driving career. I got a job driving a truck for a bulldozer, Caterpillar dealership. And I would drive at night from Chattanooga down to Marietta, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, pick up bulldozer parts and bring it back. And then I went to school in the daytime. And down south, while we're getting the snow and the blizzards up here, they're getting rain. So invariably, it seems like there's heavy rain at night. And this particular night, I'm coming up Interstate 75, and a pickup truck had passed me. It had school furniture, desks, just stacked ridiculously high. And I thought, wow, that's not safe. And he went on past me, and I drove for a while, and there's a bunch of flashing lights, and all of a sudden, I'm seeing desks, children's chairs and stuff dragged down the middle of the road. This is on Interstate 75. Well, we have to come to a stop. And what the state police did is they routed the northbound part of the traffic down into the median and up to one side on the southbound lane to get around this accident and then back across the median. And so the cars went down. Now, it's raining really hard, and it's kind of muddy down that median. So I eased my truck down in there, and, of course, I had a pretty good load on, and sure enough, I get stuck. Well, the state trooper wasn't real happy. It's raining and miserable out, and he's yelling at me to get my truck out of the way, and I'm holding up traffic, and I can't get anywhere. I'm trying to rock it back and forth, and my headlights pick up a little fella that was barely 4.5 feet high, just a little bitty guy. Well, as I had been traveling north after that truck went by, I had passed different parts of what apparently was a traveling circus. And this fella jumped up on my running board. I rolled down the window, and he says, "Just wait right here. I'll get my elephant." And I thought later, was I dreaming this, And I'm like, well, whatever. I got to get this truck out of here. And I'm trying to rock back and forth. I could move just a little bit, but the tires would spin. And I'm getting kind of frustrated. And I look up, and here this fella is with the biggest elephant I had ever seen. And he comes up to my truck, and he says, "Do you have a rope?" And I said, "No, but I got a big chain." And we hooked that to the front of my truck and hooked it to the harness on that elephant. And he gave a command, and that elephant pulled my truck right up out of that median, just like he wasn't pulling anything at all.
Who needs horsepower when you got elephant power?
Yeah, exactly. The funny thing is I remember thinking, okay, I need to, put it in gear and get the clutch out when he starts pulling me to kind of aid. And I really doubted this elephant was going to do anything.
Right.
I wasn't driving a semi. It was a Ford 750 flatbed.
Okay.
But I could haul like 21,000
Yeah,
pounds.
still plenty of weight.
Yeah, dual tires on the back. And so I remember hearing that diesel, because they had a diesel engine. I remember hearing that engine roaring as I'm mashing on an accelerator, and the front end of my truck just pulled right up when that elephant leaned into that. And we slowly come up out of that ditch on the road and got out. And all of a sudden, just as I got out, I had let the clutch out. I realized I never had it in gear. That elephant had done all of the work pulling that truck up out of that mud. Yeah,
that's impressive.
So, I learned a lesson back then. It was many years ago, but as a truck driver, just be prepared for anything. You never know.
Mr. Neil, and it is Barbour, correct?
Yes, correct.
French, right?
It's French. Yes, it is. Straight out of Canada.
Exactly. You sent me some pictures, Neil, back, what was it, maybe June, July. You sent me some pictures from a mission trip that you went on to Tijuana.
Yeah, Tijuana.
So you weren't there for vacation.
Yeah.
It was a mission trip. You were building, correct?
Yeah, it's a home building mission from our church, Joyful Harvest, up in Johnsburg. And we work with an organization called, Cross Borders concerns, and they work with El Divino in Tijuana to select these sites. The Daniel in El Divino, he goes and finds the families that qualify, and they all they do is pour the concrete, a slab, and we build the walls and roof around it. It's not a real big project. It only costs $2,000 to build that house.
That's impressive. Now, but it is a small place. So who are the recipients of these houses? Who's going to be living in there?
Oh, generally it's going to be families with children.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in Tijuana. It's pretty crowded, and it's a pretty poor area where we're building these homes, mountainsides, and they're generally living in tires and tarps and wooden pallets. So we replace all of those things with a regular structure, a painted structure, sealed, roofed, and everything. Put real windows, a real door in there with keys and locks, things that they've never used before.
Wow. Now, do you get to meet these people?
Absolutely. They're working right alongside us.
Okay, so they're
all week
working with
long.
you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very good.
You'll see the pictures of me and the one young son. Now, he was using the paint, and I'm just watching him paint the side of his house. I'm sticking my head out there. Yeah. See that there?
So yeah, I do have these pictures in front of me here, and looking, and the building, to me, I'm just observing here, looking at these pictures, that the building there is a little different. They probably don't have nearly the code standards that,
no,
if there's any at all, than from what we're used to here in the U.S. Because it looks like to me you've got some OSB, some plywood up here on the
that's all it is.
As your walls, on some studs,
2x4s, and
you're painting directly to that. There's no siding going up or anything like that. It doesn't look like to me. Maybe some
there's no siding, just OSB
all
and paint.
OSB. Yeah, and you get a roof up there.
We trim it with just the same material. We just trim the seams, cover the seams up, and then we caulk those, so it's watertight.
So there's no. I'm assuming here that there's no plumbing.
No,
inside
no
here.
Plumbing.
No electrical even, or is there
no
any
electrical?
Okay. But what it is providing is a shelter.
Absolutely.
Well, like you said, it's more than.
It's more of a shed.
It is more of a shed. Yeah. But that's still better than what tires and
tarps and pallets.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, I mean, I think a lot of us think of Tijuana as vacation destination and
on the coast, I suspect
right?
it would be. Yeah.
But and a lot of, actually, I think that's probably true of a lot of these island locations and everything too, where in the Caribbean and such, that you go and you're used to having the party vacation or your honeymoon, but you're seeing the fringe of that, and you're not seeing.
You get 2 blocks away from it, and you'll see the
locals
how they're
actually living
day in, day in, and day out, how they live.
Yeah. So why? So you said you did this with your church, correct?
Yeah, Joyful Harvest.
How did you guys get connected up with that?
Well, I think over the years it came down from one church to another church, and we had Ray Pratcher, our big carpenter. He came and he said, "Well, this is a mission that he's been working on for years already," and he asked the rest of us to join him. Well, it took a couple of years before I decided to go, and now they go twice a year.
Wow!
I mean, they'll be going November 5th down there. And what they're going to do is the mission that we stay at, we're housed in a mission down there.
Okay.
And it's got a big room of men and another room of women with bunk beds, and everything is separated there, so we don't have any improprieties or anything.
Right.
So they're going to go down and work on the mission itself. I mean, they're going to install locks and doors, maybe, because we had a kitchen window that was left open in June. We will go in the morning, and the cats had gotten into the kitchen, and our bread was kind of scattered all over the kitchen. So they'll work on improving the mission windows, and I think there's some some roofing and some soffit stuff they're going to do.
Gotcha.
But every year they improve the mission one year, and then June we go down and we build homes for the locals. And when you see these people receive their keys, the joy that is in their heart, that's spreading the love of God right there.
Yeah. So, and I think you might have just answered this question, but why is this important to you to be involved in?
Yeah, exactly. To spread the love of God, to help the poor. And that's what we're commanded to do as Christians, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're supposed to help in every way we can. And that's just one more way to help.
Mr. Kent Pitchford, I got you in here. I've been kind of wanting you for a little while to talk to you. I think this is going to be a fun, interesting conversation to have with you. So
yes,
thank you for being here. I think most people around here, at least especially around the office here, know who you are. You've got you're a bigger personality.
Yeah.
And
I call it politicking. I'm going out politicking to all my friends here at Nussbaum, because I've done it ever since our old office, and a lot of them I've got to know and all that. Some of them, when I was sick, would call me and keep up on me. But I always let them know when they're doing wrong, messing up. See, the sales guys, they lost my account for Caterpillars, and I just sat down in front of them and I said, I will not take out your kneecaps, for running. And I had this dedicated run for 6 years, and I said, I told Chris Rand, I said, take your kneecaps out, buddy. I said, that's messing with my gravy, because I left at noon on Tuesday and got home Friday night, early Saturday morning, and could find better run than that, But I got a hold of Josh Stradlin and Tyler, and they offered me the case run, and I love it.
That's good.
Yeah, Shane.
Yeah.
But we always got to come in and keep Doug in line, because I told him Brent has me come in to keep track of everybody, to make sure they're doing their jobs and keep them in line and everything.
I was at the girls over there in accounting said that found out that I was going to be talking with you here this afternoon. Mm-hmm. They told me to ask you, what accountants do.
Oh, they're my favorite women of all the world, except for my wife and daughter, because they're the one that takes care of my paycheck. See, and I told them, I said, you guys are the best people in the whole company, because got to keep them happy, because they cannot accidentally lose your paycheck for one day,
Now, they told me though that you felt a little differently about Drew when he was in there.
Right. Yeah, because he wears them sissy shoes, and like a little preppy for me, I'm an old country boy, it's like, yeah. As long as you don't put a skirt on, we're okay, Brian, but now Brian wears skirts because Mindy wears the pants to the family, and I'm surprised, and like I tell him, it's like, you're the only person I know could fall off a tricycle 2 inches off the ground and break your arm, It's like, but anyways, I love the guy.
I appreciate you keeping everybody in line around here.
Oh, yeah.
That your sense of humor is.
Oh, yeah. You can't have a sense of, you can't take things in a joking manner, something's wrong with you. You can't be serious all the time, because, you'd be like Bill, get all blue and red in the face because he's, frustrated and get all aggravated, because get your blood pressure up, I might be a big guy, but I ain't on blood pressure pills because don't let things get to me, except for my paycheck. Now, messing with my money, then my blood pressure goes up, But, no, I love everybody here. And I've told them all, and it made me feel real good when right before I went in to get my cancer surgery, Brent told me that I always had a job here. Since no matter how long I needed off, just come back and I had a job. It made me feel good, made me feel good. And then I went through all the certified red. Back, when we did first certified red, there were just a handful of us.
Right.
And it was more of a prestige kind of thing, but made you feel better because, it was just you, and Randy and a couple other guys, Neil, and, now it's everybody doing it, they just want to be like Mike, it's like,
well,
yeah. I go,
Well, you guys blazed the trail there, and now you got everybody following in your footsteps.
Oh, yeah. It's like, they just want to wear a red hat,
Look, I almost applied for a driving job just so I could get that red hat because I can't get a red hat.
Oh, yeah.
I for the life of me, I cannot get a red hat.
I'll sell you that hat for $250.
Do you need them all right now?
I need it up front. I don't trust anybody when it comes to money. You know? But anyway, no, I don't wear it that much because I want it to last forever. Because Brent handed me that hat and made me proud. And the ring, well, we had to do some adjustments on that, but made me feel good getting that. A lot of guys, it's the mup and pay. You get the 2 cents a mile and all that, but it's more of a accomplishment, Because I've been there and done that. And I've done a lot of things,
Sure.
And since I come here, I just done everything but try to be better myself, And I try to work on my scores. And a lot of guys, it doesn't matter, but I've got the time on my runs where I can make it. And if I can't make it, I'm still going to work on my score, But it works out. Jim's a great guy. He works with you.
Yeah.
And I like Jim. I like any of it. And I got to give a shout out to all them guys in the office that are going out and get their CDLs. That gives me a little bit more respect for them because they're trying. And all the ones that, like Steve Schultz, he used to drive a truck.
Yep.
Gary, and even the ones that's been in the business, they've been working here for long enough. They know trucking. They may not have, be driving or whatever, but, they know the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot more respect for that. Get these wet behind the ears guys that probably just come out of school or something trying to tell you. And that's why guys have a hard time with the driver managers because, they don't have they probably have never touched a steering wheel in a truck, let alone been inside them to didn't be able to understand the industry and how they work.
Kirsten Gee, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? A little nervous.
No need to be nervous.
Okay.
It's just you and me and the hundreds of thousands of people that are listening.
Yeah.
No big deal. No, I think we've got 20 listeners at least, so it
cool.
won't be too
That's
bad.
awesome.
And you probably know them all already.
Probably.
And most of them know you as well. Most likely from your work overnight, third shift in operations.
Correct.
That's a fun shift, right?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
What are some of the more interesting things that you've had to deal with overnight?
Oh, man. Well, the one that first comes to mind is we had a driver call me. He says, I'm on the side of the interstate. I had to press the emergency, camera button. And can you see if it got it? He didn't tell me what happened or anything. And I said, yeah, give me a couple minutes. Let's see if it loads. Because a lot of times they don't load straight away.
Right.
But because he had pressed the button, I think that helped it. I don't know. So I get on there and he's on the right side of the interstate, traveling down the right lane. And in the left lane, this van gets in front of him, kind of off to his, left, but still in front of him. And this guy jumps out of the passenger side door and rolls in front of him. And he missed him, but the guy, we think he passed away according to the driver. But so I call the driver back and I go, you could have warned me, you could have told me, what I was going to be seeing, but at the time he thought that he was going to be okay. They life flighted him and stuff out of there. But I think the cops told him later that the guy passed away. So that's one of the more crazy things that have happened.
Wow.
But you just never know. We take things all from, guy backed into me, at the
right.
Truck stop. And those are so weird. Even we've told safety, we won't have one for 3 weeks. And then in one night we'll get 4 of them, and so we're filling
Must
out.
be when there's a full moon or
yeah,
no
who
moon
knows?
or,
we should start looking at that. But yeah, so that's a crazy one. I've had people, call and a loved one has passed away or, grown man on the phone crying and you're trying to comfort him as well as say, okay, let's, what can I do to get this guy home, now. I'm an empath, so I kind of Dave, I got to go take a break, and I might tear up or whatever, but, it's, it's part of life. There's joys and tragedies, and I can't imagine being on the road and having, something like that occur. So I try to treat that with as much care as one can without really, I can't help the situation particularly, except for to say, okay, how am I going to get this guy home?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. definitely. So now, outside of work here, now you've got kind of an interesting schedule doing this because you're working 12-hour shifts. So
Yes.
you're not doing like a 5-day-a-week thing. It's kind of a weird thing. And
Right.
we won't even get into how
Yeah.
that actually works because it's confusing. It hurts my head.
Yeah.
But outside of work, I know just from my involvement with Move It and everything that you've in the past anyway, you've been involved in running. You ran a marathon a couple years ago or something like that. But has running and that kind of wellness and everything been kind of a part of you? Is that something newer? Or?
Yeah, I grew up playing softball, so I played softball for 20 years. And really, when I was in high school, we had a coach who really pushed us. I was a kid that hated to run and hated conditioning, and she really got us to a point where that's what builds you on and off the field. Then when I went to college, I was insistent. I told my friends, I said, you cannot let me gain the freshman 15 or whatever. So I ran a lot in college. Plus, I didn't have a car, so I was walking everywhere too. So I kept that up. And then it would have been 2.5 years ago. I hadn't been doing anything, and I looked in the mirror and was like, I was the heaviest I'd ever been. And I'm like, I'm going to run a marathon. It always been on my bucket list. My mom ran one when she was in her 40s. And if you've ever even just been to one and witnessed one, she ran the Chicago Marathon, which I am like not about because I don't like being around crowds or cities or anything. She just watching her do it. And at the time when she said she was going to do it, our whole family was like, yeah, oh, okay. Like mom's never ran. Like, what is she thinking? But she did it. And like everyone's crying at the finish line and all this stuff. And so since then, that was in 2006, I've always kind of lived my life on a bucket list sort of deal anyway. So I'm like, marathon's on it, So I tried to do it in college, started training for it, and I hurt my foot playing intramural soccer. I had foot surgery, so that ended it then. And then, so this just 2.5 years ago or whatever, I'm like, this is going to be it. And so I trained, and I actually found a place. It's up in Ely, Minnesota. There was only 88 participants, and you run through the woods.
You really didn't want the crowd, did you?
Yeah, no, not at all. It's a beautiful, beautiful, just place to run and be up there. So I ran it up there, and I was like an hour slower than I wanted to be, but I finished it. But it was, I don't think my legs have ever hurt that bad in my life. But I did it, and so then I wanted to train last year to run and do it better. And then I tore my meniscus in my knee. So I haven't really done anything since then. But it's still in my back of my mind. And now the pain from like finishing the first one is kind of like way back. And I'm like, okay, I could do this again, So anyway,
it's numbed enough that you're okay to.
Yeah. So
Nice.
It's weird though, because I thought I was training right and doing all this stuff, but it taught me a lot too. Like I had to walk some, and I hit a wall, and everyone talks about this wall, and I'd never hit the wall before. So then to hit it while I was doing that, I'm like, I found the wall, But like, so because at 23 miles, I was like rough, like it was bad. And but my mom was there. She came and watched, and they met me, and you could like meet people as they're running along, and she gave me some ibuprofen, and I never even thought of that. But once I took that, I could finish. I ran the rest of the way, like it didn't hurt. And I'm like, oh, I need to keep that in mind for next time. But it makes sense that I need to, because all I did in training was run, and really you need to strengthen your body in other ways by like core lifting or just stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, do I want to put that
Amazing
time
how
in?
much actually really goes into doing some like long distance
that,
running and
exactly.
Now, so explain to me this bushcrafting then. What?
Okay, so bushcrafting I haven't really entered into. It's like going out with like no tools, or maybe 5 tools or something, and just living off the land and feeding yourself and being able to build a shelter and all those things. So I've not gotten to that point, but I do go out for 10 days or 2 weeks at a time with a pack and a tent and canoe, modern gear and a canoe. And I go up to the Boundary Waters, or in Quetico, that's the Canadian side of it, and you portage from lake to lake, and portaging is just you carrying your canoe or your pack or both. I do multiple. I always overpack, always. Like I bring a full size hairbrush out in the woods. Like that's my one-to like go-to item of like, that's my comfort item because like if anybody's tried to brush his hair, with, tiny little, dollar comb, it's not going to work. So, but besides that, it's bare essentials, freeze-dried food. Then of course, if you catch fish and everything out there, I'm eating fish every day, which a fresh, northern caught walleye out of, clear water and stuff. Nothing beats that. So I go do that. And then what I normally do is I go as far in as I can in a day or two. And then I base camp on one single lake and just try to fish that lake. And probably my favorite thing to fish for. I love fishing for walleye. I've caught big walleye, but I love lake trout fishing. And there are times where you might catch one a whole trip because they're elusive. I mean, you got to have enough drifting. You got to have enough, they'll follow bait. They've done research on them. They'll follow bait for, an hour sometimes before they decide they want to hit it or whatever. And I'll never forget the first time I caught one. I was in my solo canoe and I kept telling people, it drug me around like an alligator. It was the biggest high ever, and the pole's like bending all the way over the side. And that was the first real time I had to learn how to use the drag on my reel. And that feeling is like, I got another big one. Like that's what is really cool going out there.
Nice.
Yeah. That, and I noticed a couple times ago, I was on a lake, middle of the lake, and there was no noise. Like even here, when you think it's silent, it's truly not silent. You have a buzz of this electronic or something. And
if you're anywhere around here, you've at least got, even from the distance, sound of the highway
and
all of that, because there's still city, there's stuff going on.
Yeah. And to just sit in that silence, it's weird because it's almost uncomfortable. No, I'm not going to lie. It is uncomfortable. But at the same time, now every trip I go, I look for that moment because it's not something I can grasp or find here ever. Yeah. And it just kind of rejuvenates you and renews your soul. Yeah.
Hugh Sands, I want to shake your hand. I enjoy shaking your hand. You've got some big hands, good handshake. You've got some interesting background here before getting into trucking and everything. And your experience, we had just interviewed Jeff Jackson a while back,
right?
Police officer, spent a lot of time in law enforcement. You as well have spent many years in law enforcement before entering trucking. You want to tell me, just to give me some high level about that career, and maybe we'll get some stories out of there too. But what did you spend your time doing?
Back in September of '93, I got hired on the sheriff's department. I was assigned to the jail. And then with that, I became a police officer in several different villages. One of them's our fuel stop, Village of Oakwood, where we fuel a lot. Yep. I was the police chief there. I was a police officer there for probably 18 years of the 22 years I was in law enforcement. Wow. And biggest claim to fame there was an unfortunate incident of a church bombing. I was the first one at the scene. Actually made a copy of Forensic Files. You can briefly see me in the very beginning of that episode of Forensic Files. That was very unique. Seeing a lot of things working there. I also worked for the city of Georgetown, the village of Potomac, village of Tilton, and my hometown of Catlin as a patrolman. Yeah. So
now you said at one point, so you had made chief as the highest point. You were captain elsewhere.
I was a captain there
place.
When Oakwood went to a full-time police chief. Financially, it wasn't in the cards for me. So I stepped down to being the captain, and they hired a full-time police chief at that time.
Gotcha.
Seen a lot, done a lot. Like Jeff, I'm a police firearms instructor. I'm not a master. He's a master, so he can actually teach the 40-hour mandatory firearms training to police officers. What I can do is qualify them.
Okay.
So I was a breathalyzer operator. If you got arrested for DUI, I could do that. Took a lot of different classes. Some of them's pretty neat. I took this one class. It was kind of funny. There was a police officer there. You know, when you have classes, you always got a group, and there's always one eager guy or girl that's got always got their hand out, always saying something, this, that, and the other. And it was the class was called Reed School of Interrogation, and they teach you human behavior about finding out when people are trying to be untruthful or trying to deceive you. There's certain characteristics a human will do all the time. It's how their body reacts and that. And at the end of the first day, there's a retired lieutenant from Waukegan Police Department that taught it. And at the end of the first day, he told us to go home, try it with our kids, try it with our wives, mess around with our friends. Next day, he said this gentleman was just quiet, never said anything. He just kind of down in the dumps. And he said, so the first break we had, he said, I asked him, I said, you feeling okay? He said, man, I think my wife's having an affair on me. And he said, well, now there's a lot more training to go. Let's not get carried away. And by the end of the class, I found out his wife had been sleeping with his cousin for several years. Yeah. And then the other interesting class I took.
I'm sorry, that's a really quick transition off of that. Wow! But after one class though, one day he was able to take the what he had learned and knew something was up.
Yeah, it's it's pretty neat. During class, they showed us politicians, and that was right at the Bill Clinton impeachment type of thing, and they were showing interviews with him, and we as a class had to say, is he being deceitful or is he telling the truth? And we could determine that. They showed us murder interviews, people being interrogated on murders and that. It was pretty cool. One of my pet peeves, and a guy never thought about it, but when you're wearing a uniform, there's always, and this might have happened to you. Your dad might have done this to you, but it's pretty common. I go in with my family to eat dinner or whatever during my lunch hour, and there'd always be some parent, you better behave or he's going to take you to jail. And one day I pulled a grandparent aside and I says, I understand what you're doing because my grandma used to do that. But also what you're doing is telling your child that's the only function of a law enforcement officer. Yeah. We want to be their friend. They can approach us if they got questions or, if they have an issue or if they just want to say hi. We're human beings. This is just a job. Well, I never really looked at it that way.
Yeah.
One of the things I did when I was the Oakwood police chief, I had a couple officers that were really into fitness and stuff like that. I went and bought a police issued mountain bike, and I would give them free reign. You come out and work as many hours as you want, whenever you want. You got some time, you want to come run that bicycle for a couple hours, do it. And you'd see the police officer riding that bike. It was great for public relations. And there's a ton of kids on bicycles riding behind them. It was really neat.
That's cool. That's a lot of fun. Neat. Yeah, I've had to catch myself with that same thing before, dealing with 4 kids that are 8 and under, trying to keep them all in their seatbelts. Even when they're in their 5-point harnesses, they know how to get out of those things.
Oh, yeah.
They don't make those child-proof enough. I haven't found one child-proof enough yet. Anyway. No. So they know how to get in and out. And I've always, we have used the, if you don't, we're going to be in trouble. It's like, it's not you that's going to be in trouble, it'll be mommy or daddy that's, having to answer to the officer if we get pulled over and, he sees that you're not in your seatbelt. But we've been trying to shift that.
Right.
because I am aware of that kind of negative connotation that you're putting on the law enforcement there, that now they're just out to get you. And that's not the case. Right. And so we're really trying to shift that to like, it really is about your safety. And we've preached that all along, but like, well, I'm fine. I won't get hurt. Like, so I'm trying to pull out YouTube videos now of like, here's what happens when you're not in the
right.
properly restrained. You don't stay with your seatbelt on. So we're still navigating that and dealing with that. Any advice to me?
Well, if here's what I did one time. There was a guy that actually he was a road diesel mechanic, worked on semis, had a revoked driver's license, and I'd picked him up a couple of times and took him to jail for it. And I seen him driving one day, whipped around. I stop him, and I said, "Jim, you're not supposed to be driving. You gonna take me to jail?" "Yeah, I'm gonna take you to jail." So I called for a wrecker. I got him handcuffed and did an inventory of his vehicle and everything. We're sitting in the back seat, and a mom pulls up behind me. She gets out of the car, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I'm like, I step out. I said, "Can I help you, ma'am?" And she says, "Can you help me with my child?" I said, "What happened?" "There's a Phillip 66 right across the street from the Oakwood Pilot now. And they were mom and pop truck stops back in. Says, I caught my kid shoplifting in there." I said, "How old is she?" Said 7. I said, "Here's what I want to do." I said, "If it's okay with you, this person I got in the back seat," I said, "I know him. This is a driving offense. I haven't put on a show for her. This, that, and the other." So I get back in the car and say, "Jim, you not want to go to jail?" He said, "No, I don't want to go to jail." And I said, "Well, you're going to have to eat a tow bill." I said, "But you tell this little girl that you're in here for stealing," and kind of put on a little bit of a show for her. And I said, "I'll let you walk." And he did. And I'm sure that little girl learned her lesson. Because when I was a kid, I stole a box of Cracker Jacks from an old Eisner's on East Main in Danville for the tattoos. I was 4 years old. I remember it like it was yesterday. And my mom's roommate took me straight to jail. Never taken a thing since. And I remember I'm 49 years old, and that's 44 years ago. 45 years ago. I remember it like it was yesterday. That it isn't about revenue, and it isn't about, tickets are designed to correct people's driving behavior. But what I got out of that far outweighs what the village would have got out of a ticket. If that little girl straightens up, and maybe if you know a police officer, or one day when your kid keeps wanting to get out of the seat, pull in, talk to the police officer. "Hey, can you talk to my kids for me?" They will. They'll be more than happy to. And sometimes it takes that, and they're like, "Oh, I can't believe you did that, Dad."
Like you ratted me out.
Yeah. Why did you do that, Dad? And there isn't a police officer in the world that wouldn't do that for a child.
Well, I just might end up trying that if it gets there. That's interesting. I mean, that talks about then it changes your viewpoint about what the police officer is there for.
Right.
Shifts that view of there to just get the bad guys, right?
Right.
To actually there to help the community.
Right.
I love, seeing those stories and interactions where you see the police officer, playing some pickup basketball with some guys on the street and stuff like that. Just getting out and being with.
I used to help the kids in Oakwood on Halloween throw toilet paper. They'd toilet paper trees. I get out and like, here, you don't know what you're doing.
I am certain one time
you can edit that part out.
No, I had my time doing TPing, and there was one time where blue and red lights started to come into the picture. So we were not caught. We got out of there. Oh, good times, good memories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, this is Lisa from recruiting at Nussbaum, and I'd love to answer any questions you have about driving with us. Give us a call at 309-268-1199 or visit nussbaumjobs.com. Talk to you soon. You've been listening to Terminal Exchange, the official podcast of Nussbaum Transportation. If you're enjoying our content, please leave us a review. Your reviews help us spread the word about these important topics and invite more people into conversation. You can rate and review us on your podcast app or visit us online at terminalexchange.org. New episodes arrive every other Tuesday, so be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow Nussbaum on your favorite social media platforms and be the first to know when new episodes are released. Thanks for listening. Until next time, own every moment and stay purpose-driven.